The massive doors of the Zephyrian Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder rolling across mountains. Ambassador Kethvar walked through the entrance on shaking legs, his reptilian scales clicking against the polished crystal floor with each nervous step. The chamber stretched before him like a vast cathedral made of living light, its walls pulsing with soft blue energy that made his yellow eyes water. Above him, the 5 members of the Zephyrian High Command floated in their meditation spheres, each one a towering figure of crystalline beauty and terrible power. Their bodies were made of what looked like living diamond, reflecting the chamber's light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. War Prime Zaithkal hung in the center sphere, his form larger than the others, crackling with red energy that spoke of barely contained violence. Kethvar had traveled for 3 weeks across the void of space to reach this place. His small diplomatic ship looked like a grain of sand next to the massive Zephyrian battle stations that surrounded their capital world. Every moment of that journey had been spent rehearsing what he would say, how he would make them understand the danger that was coming for all of them. "Speak, little ambassador." War Prime Zaithkol's voice boomed through the chamber like the grinding of tectonic plates. "Why does the Nelthak Confederation send its messenger to disturb our meditations?" Kethvar swallowed hard, his throat making a clicking sound that echoed embarrassingly in the vast space. "Honored overlords of the Zephyrian Empire, I come bearing a warning of the greatest importance. There is a species that threatens not just my people but yours as well. They call themselves humans, and they come from the 3rd planet of a small yellow star they name Sol." A sound like laughter filled the chamber, though it was hard to tell if it came from one of the High Command or from the walls themselves. Fleet Commander Zaranine's sphere pulsed with amused blue light. "The primitives? The ones who barely learned to bend space and time to their will? Their entire civilization spans a single world and a few scattered colonies." "Yes, those ones," Kethvar said, his voice growing stronger with desperation. "But you do not understand what they are capable of. 6 months ago, one of their ships entered our space. It was called the New Horizon, and it carried fewer than 200 beings. We thought them easy prey for study and conquest." War Prime Zaithkol's red energy flared brighter. "And you failed to capture a single primitive vessel? This explains why the Nelthak have never risen beyond their current status in the Galactic Order." Kethvar's scales bristled with shame, but he pressed on. "We did not simply fail, honored War Prime. We were defeated by methods we had never seen before. Their ship was commanded by a human named Jake Morrison, a being who showed no fear even when faced with 12 of our heavy cruisers." The chamber fell silent, except for the humming of energy that kept the High Command floating in their spheres. Technology Sage Vorthkel's sphere shifted to a curious green color. "Describe these methods, Ambassador. What weapons did they use that your shields could not stop?" "That is what makes them so dangerous," Kethvar said, his voice rising with remembered terror. "They did not use weapons we could understand or defend against. When we tried to capture their ship with our energy webs, they somehow turned our own technology against us. Their engineer, a human called Pete Collins, reversed the polarity of our capture beams and sent feedback through our entire fleet. Impossible." Fleet Commander Zaranine's sphere flashed with angry purple light. "Our energy web technology has been perfected over thousands of years. No primitive species could understand its workings well enough to manipulate it." Kethvar shook his head frantically. "Yet they did exactly that. Within minutes, all 12 of our ships were floating dead in space, their electrical systems fried by their own weapons. But that was only the beginning of our defeat. What happened next was far worse." He paused, gathering courage for the most difficult part of his testimony. "They could have destroyed us then. Their ship was damaged but still functional, and we were helpless. Instead, they did something we had never experienced in 10,000 years of galactic warfare. They began to talk to our crews." Wisdom Keeper Mothdral's ancient sphere pulsed with confused silver light. "Talk? What manner of weapon is talk?" "A human female named Amy Chen intercepted our distress signals and learned our language in real time," Kethvar continued. "Within hours, she was broadcasting directly to every soldier in our fleet. She told them about human concepts we had never heard of, family bonds that could not be broken by duty, loyalty that was given freely, rather than demanded by fear, and the right of every being to choose their own path. The silence in the chamber grew heavier. War Prime Zythkal's red energy began to pulse more rapidly. You are telling us that your warriors were defeated by words? Not defeated, Kethvar said quietly. Converted. By the end of the first day, half our crews were questioning their orders. By the second day, they were asking why they were fighting at all. The humans offered medical aid to our wounded, food to our hungry, and respect to beings they had every right to treat as enemies. He looked up at the floating figures of the High Command, his yellow eyes bright with unshed tears. I watched our soldiers defect not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. The humans showed them a way of life they had never imagined possible. They offered brotherhood instead of slavery, cooperation instead of domination. Enough. War Prime Zythkal's voice shook the chamber with barely controlled rage. You speak of these primitives as if they possess some great power, but all you describe is weakness. They could have destroyed your fleet, but chose not to. They wasted time and resources caring for enemy wounded. These are the actions of fools, not conquerors. Kethvar felt his heart sinking as he saw the dismissal in their glowing forms. You do not understand, honored War Prime. Their mercy was not weakness, but strength. It turned our greatest advantage against us. We ruled through fear, and they replaced that fear with hope. In 3 days, they had not just defeated our fleet, but converted it to their cause. Database core Lethnim's sphere glowed with calculating yellow light. Our records show that humans possess approximately 300 space-capable vessels, none larger than a Zephyrian patrol craft. Their weapons are chemical explosives and simple energy projectors. Their armor is primitive metal alloys. The mathematical probability of them posing a threat to our empire is negligible. Mathematics cannot account for what they truly are, Kethvar pleaded. They are not just another species with ships and guns. They are something new in the galaxy, something we have never faced before. They fight with their minds and hearts as much as their hands. They turn enemies into allies, weakness into strength, defeat into victory. War Prime Zythkal's sphere descended closer to the floor, his crystalline form towering over the small ambassador. Let me tell you what I hear in your words, little Nelthak. I hear the whimpering of a defeated species trying to justify its failure. You could not conquer a single primitive ship, so you invent stories about their mysterious powers to excuse your incompetence. The other spheres began to pulse in unison, their lights shifting to aggressive red patterns. Fleet Commander Zara 9 spoke with cold certainty. If these humans are as dangerous as you claim, then they must be eliminated before they can spread their influence further. We will dispatch the Grand Armada to their home system and end this threat before it can grow. Kethvar fell to his knees, his scales scraping against the crystal floor. Please, honored overlords, I beg you to reconsider. Do not make the same mistake we made. Do not underestimate them because they seem weak. They will find a way to turn your own strength against you, just as they did to us. But the High Command had already made their decision. The spheres began to rise back toward the chamber's ceiling, their audience with the ambassador clearly at an end. War Prime Zythkal's final words echoed through the vast space like a death sentence. The Grand Armada will depart within the solar cycle. 30,000 ships, each one capable of destroying worlds. These primitives will learn what happens when they threaten the established order of the galaxy. Their civilization will be reduced to ashes, and their worlds will serve as a reminder to others who might consider following their example. As the massive doors closed behind him, Kethvar stumbled through the corridors of the Zephyrian capital. His mission failed, and his warnings ignored. In his heart, he knew that he had just witnessed the beginning of something that would shake the galaxy to its foundations. The Zephyrians thought they were going to war against a primitive species, but Kethvar knew better. They were about to discover what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object, and he feared that the immovable object was going to win. 6 months earlier, the exploration vessel New Horizon drifted through the dark void between stars, its hull gleaming silver against the backdrop of distant galaxies. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace fade as they dropped back into normal space. The ship shuddered slightly as its engines wound down from their faster-than-light journey. "Where are we, Amy?" Morrison asked his communications officer, a young woman with short black hair and bright eyes that never seemed to stop moving as she processed data from her console. Amy Chen looked up from her instruments with excitement, dancing across her face. "We're in the Kepler 442 system, Captain. Long-range sensors are picking up artificial structures around the fourth planet. It looks like we've found our first alien civilization." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship's systems. Morrison had been exploring space for 15 years, but this moment never got old. First contact with a new species was always filled with possibilities and dangers in equal measure. "Pete, what's our ship status?" Morrison called to his chief engineer, a stocky man with grease-stained hands who seemed to know every bolt and wire in the New Horizons hull. Pete Collins wiped his hands on a rag and checked his readings. "All systems green, Captain. We took some damage from that ion storm 2 days back, but nothing that'll keep us from saying hello to our new neighbors." Commander Lisa Park stepped up beside Morrison, her tactical displays showing 12 large objects moving toward them from the direction of the fourth planet. "Sir, we've got company incoming. 12 vessels, each one about twice our size. Their energy signatures suggest advanced technology." Morrison nodded calmly. "Standard first contact protocols, people. Amy, start broadcasting our peaceful intentions on all frequencies. Lisa, keep weapons powered down but ready. Pete, make sure our engines can get us out of here fast if things go bad." The approaching ships moved with the fluid grace of predators, their hulls dark and angular like the scales of some massive space-dwelling serpent. As they drew closer, Amy's console began chirping with incoming transmissions. "Captain, they're trying to communicate," Amy reported. "The language is completely alien, but I'm running it through our translation algorithms. Give me a few minutes and I should be able to figure out the basics." The alien ships arranged themselves in a perfect circle around the New Horizon, their positions calculated with mathematical precision. Morrison could feel the tension on his bridge rising, as his crew realized they were surrounded by vessels that could easily destroy them. "Translation coming through, sir," Amy said, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "They're identifying themselves as the Nelthak Confederation. They're demanding that we surrender our ship for inspection and scientific study." Morrison felt a cold smile creep across his lips. "Demanding, are they? What do you think, Lisa? Should we be good guests and do what they ask?" Lisa Park's tactical display showed energy readings spiking from the alien vessels. "Sir, they're charging some kind of capture system. Looks like they plan to take us whether we agree or not." The space around the New Horizon suddenly filled with crackling webs of blue energy, reaching out from the 12 alien ships like the tentacles of some enormous jellyfish. The webs wrapped around the human vessel and began to tighten, trying to drain power from its engines and weapons. "Well, that's not very polite," Morrison said, his voice staying calm even as his ship began to shake under the alien assault. "Pete, can you do something about their party trick?" Pete Collins was already deep in his engineering console, his trained eyes analyzing the energy patterns flowing through the alien capture web. "Give me 30 seconds, Captain. These folks are using some kind of quantum entanglement system to drain our power. But they made one big mistake." "What's that?" Morrison asked. "They're using a feedback loop to maintain the connection," Pete replied, his hands dancing over his controls. "If I reverse our polarity and send a pulse back through their system, it'll overload every ship in their fleet." Morrison glanced at Lisa, who was watching her tactical displays with growing amazement. "The energy feedback would fry their electrical systems completely, sir. They'd be dead in space." "Do it," Morrison ordered. Pete's fingers hit the final sequence and the New Horizons engines suddenly roared with power. The blue energy webs that had been draining their ship suddenly reversed direction, carrying a massive electrical surge, back to the 12 alien vessels. One by one, the Nelthak ships went dark as their systems overloaded and failed. "All enemy vessels are disabled, Captain," Lisa reported. "They're broadcasting distress signals on multiple frequencies." Morrison turned to Amy, who was already working on intercepting and translating the alien communications. "What are they saying?" "Panic, mostly," Amy replied, "but also confusion. They're asking each other how we could have reversed their capture system. Apparently nobody has ever done that before. Dr. Ben Wright, the ship's medical officer, stepped onto the bridge carrying his emergency kit. Captain, I'm reading life signs from the alien vessels, but some of them are injured. Their ships are losing atmosphere. Morrison looked around at his crew, seeing the same thought reflected in all their eyes. The Nelthax had tried to capture them, but now they were helpless and in danger. There was really only one choice: to make Amy open a channel to all Nelthac vessels, Morrison ordered. Ben, get your medical team ready for emergency rescues. Amy's console crackled to life and Morrison's voice carried across space to the disabled alien fleet. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. We know you tried to capture us, but we can see that some of your people are hurt. We're offering medical assistance and emergency repairs to any ship that needs help. The response from the Nelthac fleet was immediate and shocked silence. Amy translated their confused discussions as they tried to understand why the humans would offer help to enemies who had just attacked them. Their fleet commander is asking if it's some kind of trick, Amy reported. He wants to know what we want in return for helping them. Morrison smiled. Tell him we want nothing except the chance to prove that humans can be trusted. We're going to help them because it's the right thing to do. Over the next several hours, Dr. Wright and his medical team transferred to the damaged Nelthac vessels, treating injured aliens with the same care they would give to human patients. Pete Collins and his engineers worked alongside Nelthac repair crews, showing them how to fix the damage caused by the electrical feedback. Amy Chen spent her time talking with Nelthac communications officers, learning their language and teaching them about human culture. She spoke about families that stayed together by choice rather than duty, about leaders who served their people instead of ruling them, and about the human belief that every intelligent being deserved freedom and respect. The Nelthac soldiers listened to these strange new ideas with growing fascination. Many of them had spent their entire lives following orders without question, never imagining that there could be another way to live. The humans treated them as equals rather than servants, asking for their opinions and respecting their knowledge. Commander Lisa Park noticed the change first. Captain, something's happening with the Nelthac fleet. Their formation is breaking up and I'm reading heated discussions on their communication channels. Amy looked up from her translation work with wide eyes. Sir, they're arguing about whether to return to their home world or stay here with us. Some of them are saying they don't want to go back to the way things were before. By the end of the second day, 6 of the 12 Nelthac ships had formally requested permission to join the human exploration mission. Their crews spoke of wanting to learn more about human values and ways of thinking. The remaining 6 ships were split between loyalty to their old government and fascination with these new ideas. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching, as former enemies worked alongside his crew to repair damaged systems and share knowledge. Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we've made first contact, and it's more complicated than we expected. What should I tell them about the Nelthacs who want to join us? Amy asked. Morrison looked out at the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels, thinking about the changes that had begun with a simple offer of medical help. Tell them we've discovered something important. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to turn your enemies into friends. The New Horizon and its new Nelthac allies began preparations for the journey home, carrying with them the seeds of an idea that would soon spread across the galaxy. The humans had won their first encounter with alien technology not through superior weapons or advanced science, but through something much more powerful, the simple act of treating other beings with respect and compassion. None of them knew that their actions had already set in motion events that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization, or that a terrified ambassador was at that very moment trying to warn the most powerful empire in known space about the dangerous new force that had entered their orderly universe. War Prime Zithkal floated in his meditation sphere high above the crystal floor of the council chamber, his diamond-like form crackling with red energy that grew brighter with each passing moment. The pathetic Nelthac ambassador had been dismissed hours ago, but his ridiculous warning still echoed in the vast space like the buzzing of an annoying insect. Primitives, Zithkal muttered, his voice causing the chamber walls to vibrate with harmonic frequencies. Barely evolved apes who learned to bend space and time only centuries ago, and we are supposed to fear them because they convinced some weak-minded Nelthax to change sides. Fleet Commander Zara 9's sphere pulsed with amused blue light as she descended to join the War Prime. The mathematical absurdity of the ambassador's claims borders on comedy. Our intelligence reports show that the human species possesses fewer than 300 space-capable vessels, most of them designed for exploration rather than warfare. Technology sage Vorth Kell's green-tinted sphere drifted closer, his ancient mind processing vast amounts of data through quantum-linked databases. I have reviewed all available information on this species called humanity. Their weapons technology is primitive chemical explosives and basic energy projection. Their armor consists of simple metal alloys that our smallest patrol craft could penetrate with ease. The three spheres formed a triangle in the chamber's center, their combined light creating shifting patterns on the crystalline walls. Database core. Lethnim joined them, her yellow sphere flickering with the rapid processing of countless calculations. The probability matrices are clear, Lethnim announced, her voice carrying the certainty of pure mathematics. Human civilization spans one star system with scattered outposts. Their total military strength equals approximately 0.01% of our Grand Armada. Victory probability stands at 99.97%, with the remaining uncertainty accounting only for unexpected stellar phenomena or navigation errors. War Prime Zyth calls red energy flared with satisfaction. Then we are agreed. This threat, if it can even be called such, will be eliminated before it can spread whatever poison convinced the Nelthax to abandon their duty. Wisdom Keeper Mothdrawl's ancient silver sphere descended from the chamber's highest reaches, where he had been communing with the accumulated knowledge of 10,000 years of Zephyrian dominance. There is wisdom in caution, War Prime. Perhaps we should investigate these humans more thoroughly before committing our forces to battle. Investigation is for equals, Zeethkol replied, his voice sharp with dismissal. We do not investigate insects before we step on them. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 cycles because we understand that hesitation breeds weakness, and weakness breeds rebellion. Zara 9's sphere pulsed with eager energy. The Grand Armada has been too long without a proper demonstration of our power. The lesser species grow bold when they forget what happens to those who challenge the established order. This will serve as an excellent reminder. Through the chamber's transparent walls, the vast shipyards of the Zephyrian capital world stretched to the horizon, their construction bays filled with vessels that dwarfed mountains. Each ship in the Grand Armada was a masterwork of crystalline technology, powered by quantum reactors that could tear holes in reality itself. Their weapons could shatter planets. Their shields could deflect the fury of stars. How long to prepare the Armada for departure? Zeethkol asked. Admiral Kurth Prime reports that all 30,000 vessels can be combat-ready within 2 standard cycles, Zara 9 replied. His flagship Star Crusher alone mounts enough firepower to sterilize the surface of a world. Technology sage Vorth Kell's sphere flickered, with technical specifications flowing through his consciousness. Our quantum crystalline weapon systems operate on principles these humans could not possibly understand. Their crude matter-energy conversion technology cannot even approach the power levels we consider basic equipment. Database core Lethnim added her own analysis to the discussion. Human defensive capabilities consist primarily of kinetic barriers and electromagnetic shielding. They possess no quantum manipulation technology, no reality distortion fields, no temporal displacement capabilities. They are in every measurable way inferior. War Prime Zeethkol felt a deep satisfaction settle into his crystalline core. This would not be a war but an extermination, swift and decisive. The humans would learn what countless other species had learned before them, that challenging the Zephyrian Empire led only to complete annihilation. What of their allies? Mothdrawl asked, his ancient voice carrying a note of concern. The ambassador spoke of Nelthak ships joining their cause. 6 obsolete vessels crewed by traitors, Zara 9 dismissed with a wave of energy. Even combined with the entire human fleet, they represent no meaningful threat to our forces. Sith Cole's sphere began to rise toward the chamber's ceiling, signaling that the discussion was reaching its end. Send word to Admiral Kurth Prime. The Grand Armada will depart for the Sol system immediately upon completion of preparations. Rules of engagement are simple. Total annihilation of all human military assets, followed by the pacification of their worlds. What of survivors? Forth Kell asked. There will be no survivors, Sith Cole replied without hesitation. This species has proven that they possess dangerous ideas about individual freedom and questioning authority. Such concepts cannot be allowed to spread among the civilized races. Every human world will be sterilized, every ship destroyed, every trace of their existence erased from galactic history. The other spheres pulsed with agreement, their combined light growing brighter as they shared in the War Prime's certainty. The decision was unanimous and final. Far below in the chamber's depths, automated systems began transmitting orders to the Grand Armada's command structure. Admiral Kurth Prime received his instructions aboard the Star Crusher, a vessel so massive that it required its own gravitational stabilizers to prevent it from collapsing into a black hole. His bridge crew, composed of the finest military minds in Zephyrian space, began plotting the most efficient route to human territory. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, long-range reconnaissance confirms the primitive nature of human defenses. Their largest military installation appears to be a space station in orbit around their homeworld. Our smallest destroyer could eliminate it without assistance. Admiral Kurth Prime studied the tactical displays with the calm confidence of a commander who had never known defeat. Nevertheless, we will approach with full force. The War Prime wishes this to be a demonstration, not merely an execution. Every species in the galaxy will see what happens to those who threaten our authority. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of human space, long-range sensor stations detected the massive disturbance in hyperspace that marked the approach of the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. The technicians who first saw the readings thought their equipment was malfunctioning, unable to believe that so many ships could exist in one place. Admiral Carol Brooks stood in the command center of Earth's primary defense station, watching as her staff tried to make sense of the incoming data. Lieutenant Roy Adams approached her with a tablet containing the preliminary analysis, his face pale with shock. Ma'am, the computers estimate at least 30,000 vessels approaching our system, Adams reported. The energy signatures suggest technology far beyond anything we've encountered before. Brooks studied the data with the calm professionalism that had made her Earth's top military commander. Time to arrival? Approximately 72 hours at their current speed, Adams replied. Brooks nodded and activated her communication system. Get me Admiral Mike Turner, General Kate Lewis, and Director Alex Hart from Special Operations. Emergency conference in 30 minutes. As she prepared for the meeting that would determine humanity's response to this overwhelming threat, Brooks allowed herself a small smile. The aliens obviously expected this to be a simple extermination mission, but they had made one critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that humans would react to overwhelming force the same way every other species had, with surrender and despair. They had no way of knowing that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history as the underdogs, fighting and winning against impossible odds through sheer determination and creative thinking. Admiral Kurth Prime and his Grand Armada were about to discover that mathematical certainty meant nothing when faced with a species that refused to accept defeat. The Zephyrians had every advantage except the most important one. They had never learned to think like humans. The largest military force in galactic history was heading toward a confrontation with a species that had built their entire civilization on the simple principle that there was always a way to win, no matter how hopeless the situation appeared. Both sides believed they understood what was coming, but only one of them was prepared for the reality of what war with humanity actually meant. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn which was stronger: overwhelming technological superiority, or the unbreakable human spirit that turned every defeat into victory and every enemy into an ally. Admiral Carol Brooks stood at the head of the conference table in the secure briefing room, deep beneath Earth's primary defense station, her calm expression hiding the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. Around the table sat the finest military and intelligence minds humanity had to offer, each one studying the tactical displays that showed the approaching Zephyrian armada. 30,000 ships, General Kate Lewis said quietly, her weathered face grim as she reviewed the sensor data. Each one larger and more advanced than anything in our fleet. If we meet them in direct combat, we'll last about as long as snowflakes. In a furnace. Admiral Mike Turner nodded grimly from his seat across the table. Our entire combined fleet numbers less than 300 vessels. Even if every shot we fired destroyed an enemy ship, we'd run out of ammunition long before we made a dent in their forces. Director Alex Hart from Special Operations leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes studying the enemy formation patterns on the main display. Then we don't fight them the way they expect us to fight. We do what humans have always done when faced with a superior enemy. We get creative. Brooks activated the holographic projector at the center of the table, bringing up a three-dimensional map of human space. Talk to me, Alex. What do we know about our enemies that they don't know? We know? Hart stood and moved to the display, his fingers dancing through the holographic controls to highlight specific data points. Captain Rachel Torres and her research team aboard the Darwin have been studying every scrap of information we could gather about Zephyrian society since the Nelthak incident. What they found is fascinating. The display shifted to show a complex web of connections representing the power structure of the Zephyrian Empire. Hart pointed to the central nodes that pulsed with red energy. The Zephyrians rule through absolute technological superiority backed by fear. Their entire social structure depends on every subject species believing that resistance is impossible. Which means what for us? Turner asked. It means their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. Hart replied with a cold smile. Fear only works when your subjects believe you're invincible. The moment that illusion cracks, their entire empire becomes vulnerable to collapse. Dr. Nina Foster, the xenobiology specialist who had joined them via secure video link from her laboratory, spoke up from the wall screen. I've been analyzing the quantum crystalline technology that powers their ships. It's incredibly advanced, but it has one critical flaw. It relies on harmonic resonance to maintain stability. General Lewis looked up with interest. Meaning? Meaning that if you hit their systems with the right frequency patterns, you can cause cascading failures throughout their entire network, Foster explained. It's like shattering a wine glass with sound waves, but on a massive scale. Chief Warrant Officer Tom Green, who had been silent until now, leaned forward with excitement. Ma'am, my engineering teams have been working on sonic weapons ever since we first encountered Zephyrian technology. We can retrofit our entire fleet with harmonic disruptors within 48 hours. Brooks felt the first stirrings of hope as she watched her team begin to see the possibilities. That handles their technology. What about their crews? Commander Steve Johnson's weathered face appeared on another wall screen as he joined the conference from his covert operations base. My people have been infiltrating Zephyrian communication networks for weeks. Their encryption is sophisticated, but they never considered that someone might try to hack their systems using pure chaos theory instead of mathematical logic. Explain, Brooks ordered. Zephyrian thinking is completely linear and hierarchical, Johnson continued. They can't defend against attacks that don't follow predictable patterns. We've already inserted viral programs into their fleet communication systems. When activated, they'll spread propaganda directly to individual crew members rather than going through command channels. Hart pulled up another display showing psychological profiles of various alien species. The key insight came from our Nelthak allies. Most species in this galaxy have lived under authoritarian rule for so long that they've forgotten what freedom feels like. Once they're reminded, many of them want it desperately. Admiral Turner studied the information with growing amazement. You're talking about psychological warfare on a scale that's never been attempted before. Exactly, Brooks said, the pieces of the plan falling into place in her mind. We can't match their firepower, so we're going to make them defeat themselves. Ellen Murphy, a civilian contractor and former video game designer, spoke up from her position near the back of the room. There's one more element we should consider. In every game I've ever designed, the most effective strategy against an overwhelming opponent is to make them think they're winning right up until the moment they lose. Brooks turned to face the young woman, whose unconventional thinking had already proven valuable in previous operations. "What do you have in mind, Ellen?" Murphy stood and approached the holographic display, her fingers moving through the controls to show a new tactical scenario. "We call it the Trojan Protocol. Instead of meeting their fleet head-on, we appear to retreat while leaving behind what looks like damaged and abandoned vessels." "Bait," Lewis said with understanding. "Exactly. The Zephyrians will want to capture our ships to study our technology. When they bring our vessels aboard their ships, we spring the trap from the inside." Captain Lucy Porter's image appeared on the main screen as she joined from her position aboard the stealth vessel Phantom. "My teams are already preparing for deep infiltration missions. We've studied Zephyrian ship layouts and identified the key systems we need to access." Brooks looked around the table at her assembled commanders, seeing determination replacing despair in their faces. "Let me make sure I understand the plan. We use harmonic weapons to disrupt their technology, propaganda warfare to turn their crews against their commanders, and infiltration teams to sabotage their ships from within, all while making them think they're winning a conventional military victory," Hart added. Turner shook his head in amazement. "It's completely insane. There are about 1,000 ways it could go wrong. But only one way it needs to go right," Brooks replied. "And that's what humans do best. Find that one way when everyone else has given up." Dr. Foster's voice came from the lab screen with excitement. "Admiral, I've just received confirmation from my research team. The harmonic frequencies that destabilize Zephyrian technology also interfere with their quantum communication systems. If we time it right, we can cut off their ability to coordinate fleet movements." Johnson's operations screen lit up with incoming data. "Ma'am, my infiltration programs are ready for deployment. Once activated, they'll begin broadcasting messages of hope and freedom directly to lower-ranking crew members throughout their fleet." Brooks stood and moved to the center of the room, looking at each of her commanders in turn. "This isn't just about defending Earth anymore. We're fighting for the freedom of every intelligent species in the galaxy that's been forced to live under Zephyrian rule." General Lewis smiled grimly. "No pressure, then." "Actually, that's exactly the kind of pressure humans work best under," Brooks replied. "Ellen, how long do you need to prepare the Trojan vessels?" 24 hours to make the modifications look convincing," Murphy answered. "We need them to appear damaged but salvageable, with just enough intact technology to make the Zephyrians think they're getting valuable intelligence." Porter's image nodded from the stealth ship screen. "My infiltration teams can be in position within 18 hours. We'll need to coordinate our timing perfectly." Brooks activated her command interface and began issuing orders. "Tom, start retrofitting the fleet with harmonic disruptors. Steve, prepare your propaganda systems for immediate deployment. Nina, I want those frequency patterns distributed to every ship in our fleet." As her commanders began implementing the most audacious military strategy in human history, Brooks allowed herself a moment to consider what they were attempting. They were going to face the largest military force ever assembled with a plan that relied more on psychology than firepower, more on creativity than technology. The Zephyrians expected a conventional battle between superior and inferior forces, with a predictable outcome determined by mathematical certainty. Instead, they were about to encounter something completely outside their experience. A species that had built their entire civilization on the belief that there was always a way to win, no matter how impossible the odds appeared. In 60 hours, the galaxy would discover which was more powerful: 10,000 years of technological dominance or the indomitable human spirit that refused to accept defeat. Admiral Brooks looked out at the stars where the enemy fleet approached, carrying with them the certainty of easy victory. They had no idea that they were flying straight into a trap designed by the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced: humans who had been given time to think. Admiral Kurth Prime stood on the command bridge of the Star Crusher, watching through the massive viewing ports as his grand armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 30,000 ships materialized in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls gleaming like deadly jewels against the black of space. The sight should have filled him with pride, but something felt wrong. Tactical report, Kurth Prime ordered, his voice echoing through the cathedral-like bridge where his officers worked at stations carved from living crystal. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting scattered debris throughout the system. His tactical officer replied, confusion evident in his harmonic voice. Multiple human vessels appear to be fleeing toward the outer planets, several showing signs of severe damage. Kurth Prime studied the tactical display with growing suspicion. The human fleet was running, exactly as predicted, but their retreat seemed almost too convenient. Show me the damaged vessels. The main display zoomed in on 3 human ships drifting near the asteroid belt, their hulls cracked and venting atmosphere into space. Emergency beacons flickered weakly from their disabled forms, calling for rescue that would never come. They appear to be exploration vessels, the sensor officer reported. Minimal weapons, advanced scientific equipment. They must have been caught trying to escape when our arrival disrupted their faster-than-light engines. Fleet Commander Vex Thol's sphere descended from the upper command levels, pulsing with eager red energy. A perfect opportunity to examine human technology without the inconvenience of battle. I recommend immediate salvage operations. Kurth Prime hesitated, remembering the warnings from the Nelthak ambassador about human unpredictability. But the tactical situation was clear. 3 disabled ships against 30,000 fully armed vessels. Even if it was a trap. What could the humans possibly do? Deploy capture fields and bring those vessels aboard, Kurth Prime ordered, but maintain full battle stations until we confirm they pose no threat. Across the vast expanse of the Grand Armada, massive ships extended their tractor beams toward the drifting human vessels. The damaged ships disappeared into the cargo bays of 3 different Zephyrian battle cruisers, their crews eager to examine the primitive technology within. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that Captain Lucy Porter and her infiltration teams were hiding inside those supposedly abandoned ships, waiting for exactly this moment. As soon as the cargo bay doors sealed shut, Porter activated her communication implant. Trojan horses in position, she whispered into the darkness of the disabled ship's bridge. Beginning Phase 2. Meanwhile, Commander Steve Johnson sat in his hidden command center deep within an asteroid, watching as his viral programs activated throughout the Zephyrian fleet. The alien communication networks designed for perfect hierarchical efficiency had no defense against the chaos-based algorithms that now spread through their systems like wildfire. On ship after ship throughout the Grand Armada, individual crew members began receiving messages that bypassed their command structure entirely. The messages spoke of concepts that most aliens had never heard before: the right to choose your own destiny, the possibility of life without fear, the idea that ordinary beings could question the orders of their superiors. This is impossible, Fleet Commander Vex Thol reported from his position aboard the battlecruiser Voidhammer. My communications officer claims he's receiving transmissions from inside our own ship, but our internal security shows no unauthorized broadcasts. Kurth Prime felt the first stirrings of unease as similar reports came in from across the fleet. Strengthen our quantum firewalls and trace the source of these transmissions. But the human infiltration was already spreading beyond the communication systems. Dr. Nina Foster's harmonic frequency patterns began broadcasting from hidden transmitters that Captain Porter's teams had quickly installed throughout the captured Zephyrian vessels. The precise sound waves, inaudible to biological ears, started creating resonance cascades in the quantum crystalline matrices that powered the alien ships. Chief Warrant Officer Tom Green monitored the harmonic attack from his position aboard the human flagship Unity, watching with satisfaction as Zephyrian ship systems began failing one by one. Admiral Brooks were getting cascading power failures throughout their forward formations. Their own technology is tearing itself apart. Admiral Brooks stood calmly on her bridge, watching the greatest military gamble in human history unfold, according to plan. How many ships affected so far? Nearly 1,000 and climbing, Green replied. The harmonic resonance is spreading through their fleet faster than they can compensate for it. Aboard the Star Crusher, Admiral Kurth Prime watched his perfect formation begin to crumble as ship after ship reported system failures and crew unrest. What is happening to my fleet? His sensor officer looked up from his station with fear in his crystalline eyes. Sir, we're detecting mutinies breaking out on over 200 vessels. Crew members are refusing orders and demanding to speak. With human representatives. Human representatives? Kurth Prime roared. The primitives are barely holding together 3 damaged ships. How could they possibly be causing this chaos? The answer came in the form of Captain Porter's voice broadcasting across every communication channel in the Grand Armada. This is Captain Lucy Porter of the Human Defense Force. To all Zephyrian crew members who can hear this message, you have a choice. Your leaders brought you here to destroy an entire civilization, but you don't have to be part of that destruction. Porter's words carried the weight of absolute conviction as she continued. We know many of you joined the military because you had no other options. We know many of you have families you're trying to protect. We're offering you something your empire never has, the chance to choose your own path. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the Grand Armada, lower-ranking crew members began questioning orders they had never thought to challenge before. The rigid hierarchy that had held the Zephyrian Empire together for 10,000 years started to crack under the pressure of ideas it had no defense against. Fleet Commander Vexthol's panicked voice crackled across the command frequencies. Admiral, my crew is demanding that I surrender to the humans. They're saying they want to defect to the enemy. How is this possible? Before Kurth Prime could answer, the main display lit up with new contacts as Admiral Brooks's main fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly behind the Zephyrian formation. But instead of attacking, the human ships began broadcasting a message that reached every alien vessel simultaneously. This is Admiral Carol Brooks of the Human Defense Force. Her calm voice carried across space to 30,000 enemy ships. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to offer you freedom from the empire that treats you as expendable tools, rather than living beings with hopes and dreams. The psychological impact was devastating. Zephyrian crews who had been raised to believe in the absolute authority of their superiors suddenly heard an enemy commander speaking to them with more respect than their own leaders had ever shown. Ship after ship began powering down weapons and requesting permission to defect. Admiral Kurth Prime realized with growing horror that his invincible armada was collapsing not from enemy fire, but from the simple offer of something better than what they had known before. All ships, ignore the human transmissions and prepare for immediate attack. Destroy their fleet before they can spread more of their poison. But it was too late. The harmonic disruptors had crippled too many ships. The propaganda had converted too many crews, and the infiltration teams had sabotaged too many critical systems. When Kurth Prime tried to activate his ultimate weapon, the reality distortion bomb that could erase entire star systems, nothing happened. Chief Engineer Pete Collins' voice came over the communication system with cheerful satisfaction. Sorry, Admiral, but we've been expecting that move. Reality manipulation requires quantum crystalline stability, and right now your matrices are singing our song instead of yours. As the Grand Armada continued to fall apart around him, Kurth Prime found himself alone on a dead ship, his empire crumbling and his reputation destroyed. Human rescue vessels moved through the wreckage, not to claim victory over defeated enemies, but to offer help to beings who had chosen freedom over fear. How? Kurth Prime transmitted weakly to Admiral Brooks as her ship approached the disabled Star Crusher. We had superior numbers, superior technology, superior everything. Brooks's response carried across space with quiet certainty. You had everything except what matters most. People who believed in what they were fighting for. Your soldiers fought because they had to. Ours fought because they chose to. And now your soldiers have chosen to join us instead. The Zephyrian Empire, built on 10,000 years of fear and technological dominance, had been reduced to ashes not by superior weapons, but by a simple idea, that every intelligent being deserved the right to choose their own destiny. The humans had won not by destroying their enemies, but by convincing them to become friends. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The invincible Zephyrian Grand Armada had been defeated by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. But more importantly, they had been defeated by hope, by compassion, and by the revolutionary idea that HFY